We're now going to have a look at powers, some of which we already know. For example, if we were to write 3 squared, we know that that means 3 times 3, which is 9. Or if we were to write 2 to the power of 3, we know that that means 2 times 2 times 2, which is 8. Other powers we need to know about. If we write anything to the power of 0, it's always going to be 1. And that's just something we need to learn. Other rules include, if you write 2 to the power of -1 of anything, it simply finds the inverse. That is to say, we write the original number over 1. So another example, if we were to write 8 to the power of -1, that's the same as saying 1/8. So 2 to the power of -1 is 1/2. 8 to the power of -1 is 1/8. Other rules we need to know just represent things we know in a slightly different way. For example, 16 to the power of 1/2 is just another way of writing square root of 16, which we know to be 4. A power of 1/2 is square root, so a power of 1/3 quite naturally is cube root. So 27 to the power of 1/3 is 3. Sometimes we start to combine powers, so we start to get slightly more complex examples. Let's take the following. If we were to find 27 to the power of 2/3, you can hopefully see that that's very similar to this, in that this is 27 to the power of 1/3, but this is 2/3. And what we need to do here is we need to break it down step by step. If you were to find 27 to the power of 1/3, you'd be happy that that was 3. That leaves us with this power of 2 at the top, which represents a squared. So 27 to the power of 1/3 is 3, leaves us with a 2, so 3 to the power of 2 is 9. In a different example, we have 16 to the power of 3/2. Look at the fractional power first. We're looking at a half, so 16 to the power of 1/2 is 4. It's a square root of 16 is 4. Leaves us with the power of 3 at the top, so that leaves us with 4 to the power of 3. 4 times 4 is 16, times 4 is 64. Let's take this example, but vary it slightly. Let's do 16 to the power of -3/2. The same idea works through. Do the square root first, leaves us with 4 to the -3. Let's deal with the cubed first. That leaves us with 64, but it still leaves us with a power of -1 at the top. Now remember, power of -1 gives us the inverse, so that gives us 1/64. Finally, we might end up with a fraction to the power of a fractional power. We might have something like this, 4/16 to the power of -1/2. Remember, power of 1/2 is the square root, so we can write this as square root of 4/16, or to the power of -1. Let's deal with this first. Remember from our work on surds, that can be written as square root of 4 over the square root of 16. Remember again, this is all to the power of -1. Square root of 4 is 2. Square root of 16 is 4. All to the power of -1. We can simplify this to be 1/2 to the power of -1, and because it's the inverse, it flips the fraction to become 2/1 or just 2, because 2 over 1, 2 divided by 1 is just 2.